What-
All right, what a pleasure. Holy cow. Blaine Bartlett. Thank you so much for being able to do this. This is Bart Berkey. We are on the show. Most people don't, but you do. We're also talking a little bit about For All the Marbles. Blaine Bartlett, thank you so much. We are in the same time zone today. I'm in Seattle. You're right outside of Seattle. Let's just start by saying thank you for doing this. Most importantly, happy birthday to your granddaughter.
Thank you. I will definitely pass that on to her.
I want to read a little bit about Blaine before we get into some questions. Recognized as one of the world's top leadership and executive coaches, he's an international best-selling author of Compassionate Capitalism, A Journey to the Soul of Business, as well as 4 other books. He is featured as one of the world's greatest motivators. And goodness gracious, if you go to his LinkedIn, you are going to see he's co-host Apple TV, an executive and leadership coach, chancellor for Napoleon Hill Institute, a TEDx speaker, and so many other things. We are just so grateful and beyond thrilled, Blaine, that you can join us. I would like to start just with some simple questions. You have been leading people. First, what is some of the best advice you can give to a leader today? Things change, of course. There's uncertainty in the world. But if you just started talking to someone and you wanted to lead them a little bit, what is one suggestion that you would give them?
Oh, it's a great question. Thanks, Bart. Leadership is a relationship sport. I'll just start with that. All an organization is a collection of people that are in relationship. That's all any organization is, whether it's a family or whether it's a multinational organization. And the obvious relational noticing is the interpersonal relationships that people have, me with you, with your boss, you with all that kind of stuff. But there's also relationships with purpose, with values, with vision. People have a relationship with their chairs, with their parking places. And I'm mentioning this because leaders that understand the nature of relationships are going to be far more successful than if they have missed that ball altogether. How do you create high quality relationships? How do you curate them? How do you actually build them? And the point on that has to do with if all of the relationships in the organization are working relatively well, you've got a pretty good shot at being successful. If the relationships start to go south, people's attention will follow that southward journey. You end up with people that aren't focused on what you're doing, focused on what needs to be done, because they're concerned about the ill fit of the chair or somebody parked in their parking place. Their mind share gets diffused. We weren't
Relationships.
Yep. Relationships. Simple answer.
Blaine, I've never even thought about that before. We have relationships with so many different things. Like you just said, your chair, of course, you have a relationship with food, with exercise, with sleep, with your family. Yeah. We met a gentleman last night. So we're presenting to the W Seattle tomorrow. We met a gentleman. He was there. He organized a gathering with his brother-in-law, with his cousin, with his other very good friend. And they are based in California, but they wanted to come to Seattle to celebrate. One of their cousin is getting married in a couple of months. So that's what they wanted to do. We were talking to him and they were just having a blast. They were buying drinks for everyone very responsibly. And we started talking to him about, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Tell us more about what do you do? And he owns one of the most successful McDonald's franchises in California. Great. Wow. His brother-in-law introduced him this way. You need to meet Nick. Ramen said, you need to meet Nick. This is who he is. And so we started talking to Nick and I asked, what makes you so successful? What does it take to have the number one franchise, I guess, in revenue, McDonald's in California? He said, Blaine, this goes right back to what you said, relationships. He said, I show up to work. He said, I'm not there all the time, but when I show up to work, I work next to my team. I'm flipping hamburgers. I'm frying French fries, and they see me committed and they see that I care and they see that I can do what they do. I'm not above them. It's all about the relationship, which leads me to another question that it's all making sense, right? Thank goodness for experts like you to be able to share simple ideas, but oh my gosh, people are going to think about this differently. What if people say, I'm too busy to be able to have relationships with my team. I'm worried about profitability. I'm worried about people showing up or not showing up to work. I'm so consumed with other things. I don't have time to be able to sit down and get to know Blaine Bartlett. What's your response to that, my friend?
An old meditation teacher of mine years ago, when I started meditating back in the 1970s, I said, "What's the biggest difficulty you run into when you're teaching meditation?" And he said, "It's usually people saying they don't have time to meditate." And I said, "That's interesting. What's your response to that?" He said, "That's the reason that you need to meditate."
Yeah.
Or the leader that has got all of the I'm consumed with all of my worry about all of this and this and this. That's the reason you need to connect with your people, because you're not going to get out of that hole that has been dug by yourself. You're going to have people working with you. Partly the way that I define leadership, it's the process of influencing others, which is a relational dynamic. I'm always influencing others in order to co-create. It's now we're in this together, co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. So you're looking to have people actually take action, but that action needs to be aligned, it needs to be intentional, and it needs to be focused. How do you do that? You do it because people have a relationship with the direction in which you're trying to go. And if they don't have a meaningful relationship with that outcome, they're going to
Mhm.
make stuff up and they're going to go off on their own. And you're going to end up with exactly what you're describing. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. And that's kind of it, because energy follows attention. It never follows intention.
Blaine, when I was with Ritz Carlton, and a little bit about my background, 16 years with Ritz Carlton.
I
Now,
love the
speaking,
Ritz.
thank you. Speaking now, 7 years full time on my own. My wife is the co founder, and the company is called Most People. And we
Mhm.
go out doing keynote messaging and training, encouraging people to then take action. Something I learned from Ritz Carlton, which will resonate with what you just said, there was a value that we stated that was, I'm responsible for the work that affects me. I'm responsible for the work that affects me, meaning I have say into something that I do. I can contribute. I can give ideas. I can make alterations or changes. And if I'm empowered to do that, then I can enliven it. And we know then what direction we are going. And again, the statement, Blaine, right? It's the relation to the relationship of the direction in which the company is going.
Yeah.
Another quick example, Blaine, there's an incredible place called, I just got, let me just see if I have it. Story time. Goodness gracious, I will find it. It's a lovely coffee shop that we were just at this morning. I will get the name right because it's that important. We were blown away. It's by Pike Market. Am I saying it right? Pike's
Pike
Market,
Street Market. Yeah. Yeah.
Street Market.
You got the flying fish and all that other stuff.
So we got to see that. But what was interesting about this coffee place is that they wanted you to stay longer than coffee.
Mm.
They just want to repeat that. Stay longer than coffee. They have t-shirts that say on the back, love everybody. When you arrive, they give you a warm welcome. They ask, will you be enjoying this coffee with us or to go? And it doesn't matter, but it determines what kind of cup they're going to put it in, of course. But then when you sit down, and I have never seen this before in a coffee shop, they bring you a glass of water.
Ah.
A glass of water. I was so blown away by that simple gesture because going back to the name of the show, most people don't. Most companies don't think about the service experience. I said, where does that come from? They said, it comes from our ownership, the husband of the founder, that he believes in the little details. And they wanted the experience to be more like you would get in a restaurant, even if you're just having coffee. That just really blew me away. I wanted to learn a little bit more. And it goes back, Blaine, to what you were talking about is that they let everyone know, love everybody on their t shirts and make people feel welcome. Warm welcome, glass of water, stay longer than coffee. They knew what the end result was, and then they have our relationship with it. Blaine.
Exactly. Yeah, interesting, because you also mentioned, yeah, will you be enjoying that coffee
Sure,
with us here, or are
sure.
you going to enjoy it elsewhere? So
Yes.
just linguistically, it frames the experience.
Storyville Coffee Company. Storyville Coffee Company.
Storyville. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to check them out.
Wait, afterwards, I can send you right the little screenshot of who they are. But really a great experience. Like I had to come back for the call, of course, but I wanted to stay there. I
Mhm.
wanted to stay there and open up and do the call with you. In fact, we liked them so much. My wife and I recorded a little bit of a live session for 30 seconds with the
Yeah.
GM. Anyway, so Blaine, I want to ask you a couple of questions about you, however.
Yeah.
Phenomenal experience, of course. How did you learn how to be an incredible leader? So, president and CEO of Avatar Resources since 1987, C suite radio host of The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett for 7 years, teaching faculty, American Association for Physician Leadership, adjunct professor, Beijing Normal University, managing partner, Global Coaching Alliance. So many incredible things. Blaine, how did you learn to become such a great leader? What can you share?
Boy.
And accept it into your heart because
Yeah.
I'm learning more and more about you from our mutual friend Dave Meltzer, and I've listened to you for quite some time now.
I honestly, Bart, I think the simple answer, and we can expand on this, but I learned a long time ago to listen. An old mentor of mine, a fellow by the name of Will Schutz, Dr. Will Schutz, and Will is gone now. He was a contemporary of Fritz Perls and all of that stuff. I got my chops, my stripes, if you will, back in the 1970s in the human potential movement, where we would lead encounter groups and just some pretty intense emotional gatherings that would go on for long times. One of the things that Will taught me was you have to listen to what's going on. I went, yeah, of course, that makes sense. He says, no, you need to listen to what's going on. He was talking about listen to the dynamic in the room, listen to not what people are saying, but what's underneath what they're saying. Because the only place you're going to get to move people is underneath what they're actually saying, because what they're saying is oftentimes a facade.
Yes.
Yeah, it moves into that. So back in about, I guess it was 72, 73, I started paying attention to that. And one of the things that Will said to me was that people connect through vulnerability. I amended that much later when I was doing a lot of work with Nokia to say that yes, people connect through vulnerability from a leadership perspective. If you're open, people have something to connect with. There's something that they can identify with, but they also disconnect with certainty. So most leaders will position themselves as having the answer. Yeah, I give you it's embedded in the water, so to speak. Yeah, I'm supposed to have the answers. I get paid the big bucks to know what we're doing, all that stuff. So they position themselves as, yeah, untouchable in one regard. The most effective leaders I've ever worked with are open. And I talk about authenticity. This is one of the programs I did with and do with the American Association for Physician Leadership and it's about authenticity as a leader. This isn't about throwing the kimono open and saying you get everything that's here. It's kind of, oh my God, no. It's what's appropriate in the situation. And I have to listen to the situation in order to do that. Be able to know what's appropriate here. What do they need access to that that I have available that I can make available to my constituents?
Yes. My takeaway from that, Blaine, is listening, observing, and I share a statement. It's called notice, anticipate, and over deliver. And that is can be in every single day life. It can be from a service lens. It could be from a business perspective. It doesn't matter. But if we take time to notice, right, get off of this, look up,
Yeah.
anticipate what someone might need, and then not only give them what they need, but then give them what they are unexpecting. So just as an example, but Blaine, part of that requires a great skill that you care, that you're empathetic, that you can listen, that it's not all about you, that you're also vulnerable. Did you grow up that way, Blaine? That you were a person that cared, that you were a person that listened to other people? Was it natural for you? That was 18 questions in one statement.
Let me answer it this way. And it's an interesting question. I grew up on a farm in rural Oregon, and the seasons, we have definite seasons, and the harvest season, the planting season, all of that sort of stuff. And then we had the cow and the chickens and things and so there was things that needed to be done, sequencing that needed to occur. The cow needed to be milked in the morning and in the evening. So how do we organize around that? So I'm saying all of that because what ended up occurring for me, and this is in retrospect, looking at it, I would take walks. I'd just go out in the pasture. I'd go out in the field. I'd go out in the, and we bumped up against a large forest. So I'd just take a walk in the forest and I just listen to nature. What's going on here? What's going on here? And you mentioned noticing. I'd start noticing things that I hadn't seen before. And I literally would take these walks with that little piece in my mind. I'm gonna notice something today that I've never noticed before on this walk, because oftentimes I would take the same pathway. I'm gonna notice something I've never noticed before. And I would just, I guess in retrospect again, I trained myself to pay attention,
Yeah.
to notice
Yeah.
what's in the environment, notice what's there, notice. So I would and listen, and most people think ears. Listening is a whole body experience. And when I'm listening, I'm not listening in order to respond. I'm listening in order to, Robert Heinlein's got this term, grok. I'm listening to grok. It's a full body experience. Have you ever read Stranger in a Strange Land? It was published back in the 1960s. One of the best science fiction books ever. He talks about grokking. And grokking is this full body understanding of what's being presented.
Right.
And it's in that listening, that quality of listening, that I begin to notice things that I'd never noticed before. And then I can start connecting dots.
Yeah. Does that ever make you self-conscious? Because you are noticing more. You're probably noticing how people are reacting to you when you're a keynote speaker on a stage. Does that make you more self-conscious? Because hypothetically, Blaine, if you're this egotistical jerk that did not care, that was repeating scripted keynotes time after time after time, and if people liked you, fine, who cares? If they didn't like you, you got your money. Because you are listening, because you are observing, because you are gronking with everything, even on this call, does that make you self-conscious or sensitive?
I think it makes me more self-aware. When I coach an executive, as an example, there's the executive I'm working with, there's myself. So we've got two independent bodies here that are interacting. So we're having this conversation, this dialogic conversation, going back and forth, exploring ideas. There's a part of me that will pop out, but literally from a consciousness perspective, I will just pop up and I'll watch the interaction going on while I'm engaged in the interaction. It's that metacognition, that meta awareness. I'm actually experiencing the dynamic in real time, rather than having it be just egocentric.
Wow.
My part of it.
Yes, what a gift. What a gift. Blaine, I have never heard anyone explain conversation coaching like that before. Have you ever run into anyone else that is able to observe?
Yeah, there's a couple of folks that I've done work with, a fair amount of work, particularly in the somatic. Yeah, Richard Strozzi Heckler. Richard's a good friend of mine. And we won't go into the all of the relational dynamics.
Plenty of
There's some,
stories. Yeah.
but there's some folks that I have hung around, that I've worked with, that I've professionally and personally gotten to know particularly well, that have this respect for a metacognition orientation. Just notice what you're noticing. It's
That's
kind
it.
of like
Notice what you're noticing. Yeah, yeah. Like what I notice is that if I'm on stage speaking, and it might be 4,000 people, it might be 40 people, it doesn't really matter, that I know the intention of what I want to deliver, but I don't look at notes. I
right.
don't look at script. I observe what the audience, I believe, needs at that time, and it comes from the heart, which is so I'm blessed. I'm so fortunate to be able to do that. And people are like, "You didn't look at a single note." Like, there's slides that I'm sharing that trigger certain ideas, but it is an incredible feeling. And I don't want to make this about me, but I appreciate what you were saying, is that sometimes things are coming from the heart, like you referenced, that you are able to then observe, what does the conversation look like? You're listening so intently, you're not waiting for what do you say next. Oh, it's my turn now to give advice. It's my turn now. And even this conversation, I'm being self-aware that I'm probably inserting too many things about my stories when I should be making it more about you. So thank you for being kind and flexible, even in this scenario.
Not a problem. This is your show. I love where we're going with this.
No, it's so much fun. Just two more questions, if you don't mind, Blaine. And
Yeah.
but phenomenal, phenomenal. We are talking to Blaine Bartlett, keynote speaker, author, co-host Apple TV, executive leadership coach, chancellor of Napoleon Hill Institute. I would suggest please connect with him on LinkedIn. Blaine, Blaine, Bartlett, Bartlett. I do want to ask you about Napoleon Hill Institute, you being a chancellor, and how you are also referenced in the book. I usually travel with that book. I'm traveling with David Meltzer's other book, right? I don't do business with the apostrophe MKS. But usually I'm traveling with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Can you share how you are referenced or the story of how you're referenced in the book?
Well, in Think and Grow Rich itself, I'm not, because Napoleon wrote that way before I was born. But I
Yes.
am referenced. I'm a part of the movie, the Think and Grow Rich. I think it's called The Legacy. There's a Think and Grow Rich movie, and I'm one of the. I speak in it. I've got a part in it. I was interviewed, yeah, in the movie itself.
Fun, fun, fun. I thought, because I know there's the original book, 19, whatever, 27 or so. And
Yeah.
then there's, I don't want to say the updated version, but the version that has examples of today leaders and things like
Oh,
that.
that
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. What does being chancellor for Napoleon Hill Institute, what does that mean?
And if you think of a chancellor in an educational institute, it's someone that is, from a governing perspective, they're participating in just how the organization's health and well-being is attended to. For me, particularly, it has to do with the educational dynamic. How do we actually invite people to participate with Napoleon Hill's teachings
Yeah.
so that they can begin to, not just read about them in a book, because we've got a lot of modalities today that are available to people. So David Meltzer and I, we co-teach every Wednesday morning, or every Wednesday. The time varies a little bit, but we teach a lesson out of the Napoleon Hill library, so to speak, and it's open to everybody. My purpose in participating with Napoleon Hill Institute is to bring the teachings, bring the information, bring the concepts into the public domain in a much more fulsome way than has historically been the case, with just the book being primary as the medium.
Yes, yes. Blaine, were you already successful in life, not in business, but successful in life before you were exposed to Napoleon Hill?
I first read Napoleon Hill in the 60s, so I was still in school. So I was successful in school.
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
flunk out. I didn't flunk out.
Because I know you are passionate about it and Dave is passionate about it, and I'm becoming more passionate about it as I'm learning. For our listeners that maybe have not read the book or his books, I'm referencing, right? Think and Grow Rich. What is one thing that you think people could begin to focus on now to adopt some of the principles in Think and Grow Rich? I know there's steps and there's essentially work and planning and purpose and master classes and brainstorming. There's so many elements. But is there one thing as a takeaway that you would share with these listeners?
Yeah, and Hill, he actually wrote a number of different books, and obviously the most well-known one is Think and Grow Rich. I would actually point people to another book called Outwitting the Devil.
Outwitting the
And
Devil. Okay.
Outwitting the Devil. I did a whole actually, I just finished my sixth book, and it's just a small little ebook, but it's titled Stop Drifting, Start Living. Outwitting the Devil basically is Napoleon talking about how people end up drifting in their life, drifting away from expressing fully who they are. And he charges the devil with being the mechanism by which that happens. Now, this isn't in a religious sense,
Sure.
but it has to do with the paradigms in people's minds. This is where my friend Bob Proctor, yeah, Bob and I just resonate. He was one of my best friends. And he would talk about paradigms, belief structure, mindset. This is what gets people in trouble in an organization or just in life. We will start drifting away from what we say we want to have based on the influences of society, education, social pressure, religious pressure, religious indoctrination, just all kinds of things. It's paying attention to those externalities that take us away from the internal. This is the soul of business. Everything has a soul that wants to
Yes.
fully express itself. That full expression gets capped by what I call mindset or paradigm structures that are never examined for the most case. This is
Yeah.
Outwitting the Devil is about an invitation to examine these almost concretized mindsets that people have that prohibit the expression, the full expression of who I am. That's one of the biggest things that I've taken away from Napoleon Hill's work is, and it's not new stuff. This goes back 5,000 years when you start
Right.
taking a look at the
Yeah.
metaphysics of life. Yeah, metaphysics is the oldest branch of philosophy. It literally dates back about 5,000 years. And it's talking about the energetic dynamic that all living things have. And that
Yes.
energetic dynamic is always seeking full expression. And it doesn't achieve it because we start buying into all of the shoulds that surround us. We should do this. We shouldn't do that. It's appropriate to do this. It's not appropriate to do that. We start compromising our expression of who we are.
Yeah. Compromising
And
the expression that we are.
I go full circle back to relationships again. My relationship with my soul not gets compromised by my distraction that is a relational distraction to what society says I'm supposed to be paying attention to. Our metrics of success. You're only successful if, and then fill in the blank. You've got this, these
Right.
numbers in your bank
I
account.
have this title, I have this office, I have this car.
Well, success has nothing to do with externalities. Success has everything to do with the way I express who I am in my life.
Yes. Who I am in my life. There are things that are causing us to drift away with, and I've heard Dave say something along these lines, right? Being your best self or
Yeah.
being your greatest self. Blaine, just imagine this, and I've never thought about this until just now. I believe I'm a good person. I root more for the underdog than I do for the overdog. If someone is cocky and arrogant, that turns me off. So I'm probably not as kind as I need to be. I begin to be judgmental, and I'm aware of that. But in the greatest sense of the word, I'm trying to become a better person. I'm trying to do what most people don't do because I want to feel better, get better, do better, and help more people do the same. Feel better, get better, and do better. What if my best self is a jerk, an arrogant, cocky son of a gun, and I have identified that to be my best self? Can that be a thing? Can someone identify their self-worth, their best value of themselves? There's other great terms that you just shared that I can't remember exactly how eloquently you stated it. But what if my destination is not altruistic, if it's not genuine, if it's not sincere, if it's not nice? Does that happen?
What happened, that's the nature of drift. Uh,
Correct.
yeah, the nature of drift. And this is what Napoleon Hill talks about in Outwitting the Devil is what's the cause of drift? What does it look like? How do you, and then how do you mitigate it? But here's the key around this. When I say to my spouse, I love you, who is the I that I'm speaking about? Okay. For most people, it's the identity that I have about this corporeal form, this bag of skin that I live in. I say that's the I. What I'm suggesting is no, that's not the I. That's just a vehicle for an I, for this incredible I, big capital letters, big I with a neon sign to express itself most fully. And that expression of that I is never toxic. That the I, the soul of existence is not toxic.
It's
It has
never
to go
toxic.
through, yeah, it goes through this sieve
Yes.
that
Yes.
that has been stacked with all kinds of stuff. So when you're talking about I'm a jerk, you got to be careful about how you finish the sentence. I am,
Yes.
because that now becomes your reality, and it's
Yes.
made up. It's a
Mhm.
made up construct.
So is your belief, I want to make sure that I'm summarizing this, is your belief in the belief of Napoleon Hill and others that at the essence, every person is good. Every person is good.
Every person, every
Yeah,
person is a differentiated expression of a unified whole.
of a unified whole. So could that unified whole be a bad person,
No, the expression of it,
the
it's a,
expression of
an
it,
expression is a learned expression.
a learned
Each
expression?
unique, there's 8 billion people on this planet. There are 8 billion differentiated expressions of this source
Yeah.
material.
Yes.
And how that differentiation occurs is a function of how we grow up, what our attention is about, how we actually position ourselves in life, what we start to believe is true.
Mhm.
Yeah. We were
Yeah.
given a ticket when we were born. Just
Yes.
think about it this way. We were given a ticket when we were born. Just kind of like you go to an amusement park and you get a ticket when you walk in the door. This
Yep.
particular ticket says admit one. It doesn't say anything else. There's no guarantees, there's no guidance, there's no owner's manual, anything. There's just this little ticket that says admit one. And then we
Mhm.
drop into this time space thing that we call reality. And we start gathering stuff up and we go, well, that means this. That means I'm that. Mom said this about me. My teacher said this. All of that stuff starts to come into play, and then we form this thing that's called an identity. And the identity is just a manufactured illusion that we encase ourselves in, that we then get to navigate through the world with. It's not the truth.
It's not
It's
the
not
truth.
the truth.
Yes. The
We
drifting
act as if it
represents
is.
things that are preventing us from being our true selves. And that's ego, and that's pride, and that's negativity, and that's social influence. And that's what other people are saying about ourselves. But all of those things, if we realize it, that when we get that admit one ticket, that gives us the ability, the potential to be the best person that we can be, as long as we don't drift. We have to be aware. We have to be self aware, as you said,
Yeah.
to notice what is causing us to drift. Is it judgment? Is it ego? Is it, I want pretty things? I want a big house. I want a fancy car.
Yeah.
Or
Which
can we
are
make,
all external. Yeah.
yeah, all
It's
external? Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
But
I
our
do a
own,
lot of work in Africa with my wife. We've got a foundation. She's got a foundation. We've been going to Africa for 15, 20, almost 20 years now. We've touched the lives of about a 500,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa on an ongoing basis. And what's one of my very first trips there, mud huts, no automobiles in the area in which we're at. There might be a motorcycle or something, but these people are walking. They're walking miles and miles. They're gathering firewood, carrying it on their head. And some of the happiest people I've ever met.
yeah.
Some of the happiest people I've ever met. Because I'd look at it and go, "You don't have running water. Where do you go to the bathroom?" It's
Yeah,
well,
well, that's
whatever.
great. Wow, wow. They are not letting that, they're not permitting external things allow them to drift. I didn't share this with you yet. Our daughter lives in Oahu. She's been there for 3 or 4 years, has been working for a really great organization. And all of a sudden, with the storms and the flooding recently, we're
Storms
very
and
worried
flooding.
about her. And she was out without power. She's fine. But I noticed on social media a lot of things that people were posting in Hawaii were about, in Oahu and Kona, were about people still enjoying themselves despite half of their beach being gone, making fun of the gesture of mopping out water out of their kitchen because
Yeah.
water is a foot high into their family room, going out and paddle boarding with their dog through the streets that are now flooded, but not permitting an external horrible thing that happened with this flooding to take away their spirit or to allow them to drift. And I think it's those things that we need to continue to celebrate. I know you're doing it all the time, Blaine, and thank you for that. Thank you for your contributions to the world. You don't need to hear it, but I am just so honored to be able to chat with you. I will have one final question to conclude, but there are some amazing resources, Blaine, that you offer. I know you're doing the calls with David Meltzer. What is the best place to learn more about you and the services that you offer, and perhaps how people could hire you, work with you, learn from you?
Thank you for the opening there. Blaine, you mentioned the LinkedIn, Blaine Bartlett on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social platforms typically, but probably the easiest is either my personal website, blainebartlett.com, which on the screen here, blainebartlett.com, or my company, Avatar Resources. The website there is avatar-resources.com. And that's where a lot of the compassionate capitalism material is actually positioned.
I know we didn't have time to talk about your 4 books. I would love to be able to get you back on. I don't never want this to be the last of any type of conversation. Thank you very much. A shout out to David Meltzer and his team for the introduction to you, Blaine. Really absolutely thrilled with what you're doing, and what an absolute honor. You taught me so many things. We're blessed also that the podcast goes out to a good number, consistently between the top 2 to 5% globally. So we will spread the word of all the great things that you are doing to help people identify their true selves, help companies, executive coaching, read your books, learn more about Napoleon Hill. Last question, I promise. As the name of our company is Most People Don't, the podcast most people don't, the book most people don't. How would you fill in the blank? Most people don't blank.
Most people don't act as if they are a center of distribution. Most people act as if they are a center of accumulation. So
Yeah,
lesson from nature. Everything in nature serves as a center of distribution. Everything in nature is a center of distribution in some way, and nature thrives.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's not about us. It's about what we can give to others to make us
Absolutely.
fulfilled. Blaine Bartlett, I cannot thank you enough for spending time. It's Sunday morning, just to let everyone know we'll be broadcasting it either next week or the following week. We'll be publishing it for everyone to learn more about blainebartlett.com, other great resources. Spending a little bit of time on Sunday morning with us means the world to me. What an absolute honor. You are phenomenal, gentlemen. Thank you, sir, and enjoy the celebration with your granddaughter and family. Happy birthday to her.
We will do that. Thank you, Bart. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you.